Intriguing story, unique combat, and the potential to be the most player-driven content I've seen in any MMORPG. These are only a few of the reasons why I'm hyped for the upcoming Sandbox anime MMO Peria Chronicles. The game was originally introduced as Project NT by Korean developer ThinkSoft several years ago, and they've since released dozens of videos and trailers giving small teasers of its many amazing and unique features. Today I want to tell you about those features and why Peria Chronicles is a game I highly recommend you keep an eye out for. This part will be short, so bear with me, but knowing the story will make everything a lot easier to digest. Long ago there were two realms, Peria, the realm of the humans, and Araka, the realm of chaos, inhabited by more powerful beings known as Kiranas. The Kiranas are ruled over by an evil deity, their creator, the goddess Akasha. At some point in time, these two realms collided, giving the inhabitants of Araka entry to the human world of Peria. Kiranas as new residents of Peria coexist with humans, with some forming bonds with them through contracts to empower humans and fight alongside them against the evils of the goddess Akasha. This is the reason behind every cool thing we'll be able to do in the game, like terraforming and a very unique combat system. The combat in Peria Chronicles centers around Kiranas. Each Kirana has a specific granted ability which takes the place of what would normally be skills in regular MMORPG. Instead of leveling up and getting new skills, you get your abilities by forming contracts with Kiranas and using the powers they provide. When triggered, some can be summoned to fight beside you, some can take the form of spells or weapons, while others can even transform your character altogether. In this video of the combat tutorial, we're shown how this works. There is hand-to-hand combat with weapons too, this time with melee, and in a bit I'll show you the ranged combat as well. We've seen a whole bunch of other Kiranas, so I'm not so worried about variety when it comes to abilities. You by default are a human being, so you can't really do anything cool on your own, at least without Kiranas. You can think of it as something like being able to summon multiple Digimon and also having a bunch of demon weapons like in Soul Eater. The publisher aims for Peria to provide a combat system that will have variety and move away from the usual hack and slash. In an interview with the producer and director of Peria Chronicles, the director talked about a Kirana with an archery skill that is similar to an FPS where you have to aim and shoot. I was able to find a glimpse of what I think he was talking about in the original 2013 trailer, where the character looks to be using a Kirana and aiming a flaming bow at an enemy. The devs have also mentioned that if restrictions were to be removed from dungeons, some of them would not be far from first-person shooters. Everything you're seeing is from pre-alpha, so I can only guess that it will be more action-packed in the future. Speaking of dungeons, moving on to progression, we know that there will be player levels, though it's unclear how they will work with progression at this point. Will levels give me more stats, access to more content, or what? We also don't know if there will be a main questline or storyline to follow throughout the game. Though we know that there is at least a story to follow in the beginning that introduces several recurring characters, the combat system, and other important and cool features that can be done with Kiranas. So my guess is that there is going to be some kind of story throughout. The world of Peria is divided into big zones, each of which is connected with portals to other zones. Every player is granted a home in Peria, and at some point the ability to transform and create landscapes, or terraform the world around them. We'll be able to create our own dungeons, floating fortresses, and there are even players already with plans to rebuild Sword Art Online's world tree. It's not like Arcade where you're only building a farm or house over the landscape. In Peria, players have the ability to add the landscapes and whatever they want over the existing world. This ability, like many others, is done through a contracted Kirana, which presumably is met through the main progression, since the developers have mentioned that important Kiranas will be introduced in that way. But of course that last part is just my speculation. Peria Chronicles takes the term player-driven to an entirely different level, and ties it beautifully with the sandbox nature of the world. Players will be able to create content in Peria for themselves, their friends, guilds, or strangers to play with. With various tools, one can create mountains, underground tunnels, caves, mazes, waterfalls, and full-blown dungeons. And I don't mean just the landscapes themselves, but full-blown, interactable, quest-giving, reward-giving dungeons and mazes. There is a variety of tools and mechanisms that can be used to create your content, like levers and switches, some of which can be combined to create more complicated stuff like elevators, automatic doors, and the like. These things can vary from lamps to traps for dungeons depending on how you want to tie them together. And we know that some of which will be limited by the need to be crafted. To give players even more control over their creations, the game allows players the ability to play with script and code editing, allowing the creation of our own unique minigames within Peria Chronicles like this giant board game, for which you make your own rules. This also appears to be how quests, missions, and written content made by players is going to be possible. If a player creates a quest like Save a Princess, a random adventurer can accept it and earn gold from it. If they fail, the creator gets gold instead. With this system, the amount of content is determined by the community, rather than a set number of missions, dungeons, and raids. But I also want to clarify that of course, there will still be existing dungeons and content all throughout Peria that are not player built. It's hard to fully grasp how these complex features work due to everything being in Korean, and there's not many translators in this game's community right now, but I wanted to at least show you a bit of its depth. Being able to create rules for mini-games within a game is one thing, but what about the cool new town you built or the challenging dungeons you've just finished? Rules for those bigger things like landscapes in the world are going to be done through what I call the voting system. Say a character is able to cast 1 vote per hour. For the area covering your new town, you want to ban PK of any kind. That kind of law might require 100 votes to put into place, so you can either wait 100 hours and cast 100 votes yourself, or you can get 99 other players to vote on it with you. The law will then be set into place for a period of time, and can be overthrown by others with enough votes. It's a system that lets players manage themselves, instead of the rules being the same all the time. It allows players to put laws like no map editing in this area and no deleting this mountain, and change those rules with enough support from other players. Of course, if you don't like the lawmakers of that area, you can always just leave them, build your own stuff somewhere, or go to a different players. Conflicts will occur between people in these villages, treaties will be made between villages, and every single one of those can be vetoed with enough votes, so the content created and how those content are played are all dependent on the players. The economies in the game are also said to be player-driven, but I wasn't able to find much detail on that. A bit of speculation: with a player-driven economy, I want to assume that it means something that is based primarily on local trades, so personal trades and possibly opening shops that are run by Kirana NPCs. I would think that's more likely the case as opposed to a worldwide auction house like in Arcade or BDO. The developers have said that they're working on creating more limits to what players can do, which for me is kind of exciting because they're not thinking, what more shiny things can we add to make people more interested? But rather they're pretty much saying, our players can do way too much and there's likely too much room for exploit, we need to add more limits. Before I forget, there's also a highly adjustable character creator. We've got the usual slider features with pretty good range, and here we can see a bunch of created characters showcasing variety. It is confirmed that there will be outfits and gear in the game as well, but we don't know too much more than that. Hopefully some of the cool outfits will be available through gameplay and not heavily locked behind some kind of cash shop. I'm also getting a pretty casual friendly vibe from this game, mainly because there appears to be a lot of features that single players or even tiny groups can do and still have fun with. The developers interview done last December on thisisgame.com asked the question of when gamers can expect a release date, and they responded with, "We use our own engine, so we frequently improve it and add new features. That costs us much more time, and no wonder some players think we are not doing anything. We are working hard and we hope to release the game at the end of 2017 or early 2018. I'm guessing this may not still be the scheduled plan, since they also said in the same interview that they will start alpha tests as soon as possible in 2017, and then start closed beta in the middle of 2017, and we're just about past that with almost no updates on the matter. I hope that come the time Peria gets an alpha or beta, the Western community will be big enough that there will be multiple translators to give an English patch. The extent of the complexities, from the many different menus to possibly having to fiddle with scripting, will be an insane task to tackle if everything is in Korean. I also hope that when the game is more known to the public, it will be pitched correctly. I would hate for Nexon to pitch it as a Pokemon-like MMO or something like that, cause the game offers so much more than just summoning Kiranas to fight for you. I still have a ton of questions, and honestly I'm a bit hyped to play and actually support the game through alpha or beta testing, but I know it's still gonna be a long wait. To be honest, a lot of what we've been shown so far are almost never seen in games in the MMORPG genre, and I can't help but think that Peria Chronicles might be a stepping stone to a new generation of MMOs. But of course, we won't know until it's in our hands. So for now I see it as a possibility and a handful of promises. If you have any questions about this game, you can ask me in the comments below. I may be able to tell you what you want to know. If not, I could probably direct you to somebody who can. The best place to find others interested and waiting for Peria Chronicles is through the fan site peria-chronicles.com, and you can join my Discord and discuss the game with me and my community as well. Do subscribe to my channel if you'd like to stay up to date with Peria Chronicles as we get more news this year and possibly next year. And if you'd like to further support my MMORPG reviews and news videos, you can do so on patreon.com/Nocht. I want to thank all of my kind patrons for their support, and of course all of you for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful week.